December
Attention
19th,
all raiders.
1981.
We've got
The
confirmed
sun
reports
decided
of a
it was too
harvester
shy for
nearby.
today as it hid
That means
behind
the queen should be present as well. So be on your guard and only engage it if you're prepared for
there
the
were
fight.
not many souls that ventured to the coastlines of the beach-clad state. However, enthusiasts and surfers wanted to take advantage of the storm swell caused by the cold and windy weather. Louis Archer Foran woke up to his alarm. Although most people would sleep off Saturday mornings, the curly-haired adventure seeker had always been fond of the ocean, and the ocean welcomed him. He planned on surfing the waves of South Moss Beach with a friend, expecting it to be just another typical day. He quickly got up from bed, ate breakfast, and said goodbye to his parents. He got out into the driveway and strapped his 5-foot 4-inch surfboard on the roof rack of his car. The board was colored yellow and had a black border by the edges. Coupled with the surfer's hands stretched wide while lying on the board, the silhouette from under the ocean eerily looked like a seal. However, this was not in Lewis's mind at the time. He beamed like a child as he maneuvered the car out of the residence, unbeknownst to him. This would be his last goodbye. He drove carefully, reaching South Moss Beach still early in the morning before the rendezvous time. The smell of the ocean permeated the air, promising Lewis another excellent surfing session. Since 1899, there have been 6 fatal attacks from sharks in California, 5 of them from great white sharks. Although this pattern would easily send chills down anyone's spine and make them warier of entering the waters, fatal attacks from sharks are not really that frequent. Additionally, surfers know precisely the risk they're putting themselves in while practicing their sport. Unfortunately, Lewis never knew he would be the victim of one such brutal attack. Inhaling the sea breeze, the two friends stood patiently on the coastline, peering across the lonely, turbulent sea of South Moss Beach. The two looked out over the greasy, damp kelp beds underneath the gloomy sky. They floated in large, silent rafts colored brown as though serpents were churning beneath them. The waves were blown out on the reef, scaling up to 15 feet high, driven by the cold winds that day. Not a single soul was riding the waves. How could they not take advantage of this, Lewis and his friend thought. They two men particularly his friend. They paced along the coastline for a while, stalking the opportunity and getting a general feel of the atmosphere. Lewis and his friend were experienced anyway and didn't share the fear non-surfers felt. The ocean was their home. The two entered the cold waters and paddled out into the open. Floating on the surface, they sat on their boards, waiting for the perfect opportunity. When the winds favored their request, they lay down on their stomachs, pointing their toes towards the surfboard's tail, and paralleled their heads to the stern. They paddled slowly and then quickly, scanning the waves from the periphery. In almost perfect synchronicity, the two young hands, their shoulders prepping for the exhilarating moment. As the wave warmly welcomed the two surfers, they pushed against their boards, propping their torsos like cobras, and in one fluid motion, Lewis and his friend jumped to their knees. They took a couple of waves in this position, feeling the balance of the board, something they had done 1,000 times already, not realizing a sinister force was moving underneath the surface. They did this over and over until morning faded into the afternoon. Eventually, it was time to go.
So your job expects you to be on time for work every day, but once you should just wait 2 weeks for your paycheck. If you need $100 to make it through the day, you are not wrong. There's this app that I love called Earn It, and with it, you can get up to $150 a day with a max of $1,000 in between paydays. It's your pay, your pace. You just verify your identity, send this little right here, and you can move the money to your bank account. There's no credit check and no mandatory fee. Get what you need to make your day right. Trust me, your future self will thank you, especially when the stacks run out. Download Earn It and make it payday.
It's illegal to drive without car insurance in almost every U.S. state, but there's one thing you can try pretty much any time if you want to save money. So I found this website and look at the difference. $159 a month. I thought this was the best price I could find. Don't even look anywhere else. This is the best price, right? Wrong. Now look at my new price, $47 a month for 2 cars. And honestly, the whole process to shop for better car insurance options blew me away. And I didn't have to jump through a ton of hoops to get matched and switch. So many of us are paying way more than we need to, just because we never bothered to check for better options. So if you want to try this website, I put the link below. It took 2 minutes to get matched with an insurance provider. Super fast. You gotta trust me on this. Just try it out.
Afterward, they returned to the parking area and enjoyed their lunch, talking about surfing, life, and family, and other things that young men in their 20s spoke about. At approximately 2 p.m., Lewis and his friends parted ways, not realizing this was the last time they'd see each other. As Lewis made his way back into the car, he felt an urge in his chest. He dazedly stood beside his car with a half-hearted stance, thinking it would be such a waste to let the beautiful waves go. He bathed in the deserted scenery and decided to hit the waters one more time. Just another short session, and then he'd go home. Or so he thought. Lewis made his way back to the beach, pacing along the coastline and trying to get a feel for things once more. This time, he was truly alone. However, it didn't matter to Lewis. The storm swell did not happen every day, and he wanted to take advantage of the great waves. He donned his wetsuit and began paddling into the open waters. The sound of the churning ocean filled the air, and a dreading atmosphere washed over Lewis. From underneath him, a fearsome creature watched. The great white shark tilted its head, moving a few meters swiftly under Lewis. The 24-year-old paddled and paddled, unwittingly swimming towards his demise. The fish around the area scrambled in fear, making way for the king. The shark appeared from the shadows, rearing its formidable head into the light. But Lewis did not see the creature. The gloomy weather ensured anything a few meters below him would stay where they were, in the dark, out of sight and out of mind. It moved like a submarine, precise, deadly, and cautious. The 400 million years of evolution taught it to become almost invisible in the ocean, following the movements of its prey. The great white shark followed Lewis. Still unknown, the danger of Lewis's fate was sealed at that very moment. A few feet below the surfboard, the great white shark suddenly went into gear, propelling 2,000 pounds of brute force towards the surface. The water exploded into chaos. The creature's massive jaws, laced with 5 rows of teeth, clamped onto Lewis as he paddled away at the water. It was like a train had struck him. The immense force knocked Lewis back from his surfboard, causing him to sink into the depths of the ocean. The single curious bite removed a portion of Lewis's left chest. Before he knew and understood what was happening, he was already dying. Lewis faded into the depths, instantly succumbing to his injury. The water drew its curtains, hiding the horror underneath it, and just like that, the eerie silence of South Moss Beach swept away the tragic fate of Lewis Archer Bourne. December 20th, 1981, the following day. 2 surfers were walking along Moss Beach when they discovered a surfboard with a portion missing and the matching section about 15 yards away. The 2 surfers took these parts and handed them over to Salinas Police Department. Eventually, they passed it on to the supervising ranger at the beach. Monday, December 21st, a missing persons report was filed by one of Lewis's friends over concerns that his vehicle had not been moved from the beach since he was last seen. They feared the worst, and they were asking the same question: where was Lewis? Their answer was swept by the cold currents on the morning of Thursday, December 22nd. Around 11 a.m., Lewis's remains floated in a small cove approximately 1 kilometer north of Spanish Bay. After being taken to the Paul Mortuary in Pacific Grove, it was identified as Lewis. An autopsy was done. Severe trauma, left chest, shark bite. Lewis was bitten only once. Subsequent investigations of the bite marks revealed something even more sinister. Based on the segment chopped from the surfboard, a marine biologist concluded that the shark's jaws were 18 inches wide. This indicated the shark's length was more or less 23 feet, weighing 2 tons. They had no doubt it was a great white shark, and the largest ever documented. In all metrics, Lewis was no match. According to experts, sharks do not attack people purposely, as they don't consider humans part of their food source. In Lewis's case, it was more likely that he swam to bite, enough Unfortunately, the behemoth shark was never seen again. Humans have remained on top of the food chain for the longest time. Thanks to their highly sophisticated language, coordination, and innovation, humanity has managed to control the environment to their liking, turning their surroundings into what would benefit the population best. However, we must all remember the ocean is one of the few remaining places we have yet to fully explore. Those who are careful enough are in for a rude awakening. Whether a shark attacks you because of mistaken identity or out of pure hunger, when a shark attacks, there's a high possibility of you meeting your final affliction.
Back-to-school season is right around the corner, and partnering with Dollar General to do some back-to-school shopping, we don't need one of these bad boys. These are only $1, 1 gallon. The whole aisle, the first $1 deal. I love a good deal. You're gonna get some multi-surface cleaner, maybe some air freshener, and put some extra storage in my classroom. This little dust cleaner for only $5. Disposable tools here for only $3. And pens for only $1.50. Deodorant sprays, notebooks for only $1. Who wants a home? Mini dustpan set. Got 4 clear bins, 2 large foldable totes, 1 gallon pack of Ziploc bags, 2 packs of quart Ziploc bags, 3 packs of Band-Aids, multi-surface cleaner, a room spray, Lysol disinfecting wipe, 3 folders, 2 notebooks, pack of 2 jumbo Sharpies, and a pack of pens. Would you believe me if I told you that I got all of this for under $100? It's a teacher discount available in the Dollar General app. 30% off on all school supplies and classroom purchases. You can go ahead and sign up for that discount in the Dollar General app. So check out Dollar General.
Come on through.
On Vinted, you can just snap, list, and sell with ease. With 0 selling fees. Bags, basics, those pants you swore you'd wear but never got around to, even that dress from 5 birthdays ago. Turn fashion and more into cash. List from your room, sell without the hassle, and get paid stress-free. Declutter fast, earn even faster. For fashion and so much more. Download Vinted and start selling today.
Boyfriend and girlfriend Roy Stoddard and Tamara McAllister were two 24-year-olds who met whilst teaching in the same school in West Malibu, California. They initially bonded over their sense for adventure. Tamara was preparing for public health work in Kenya as part of her master's degree. Roy turned his hand to anything from mountain climbing, biking, and surfing to scuba diving and kayaking. The two of them spent all their spare time hiking, camping, and kayaking together. On Thursday, January 26, 1989, the couple were training for a triathlon that they were planning on competing in together. In preparation for the upcoming race, they kayaked and swam daily. Their usual route took them on a 3-mile round trip from Lake Point to Paradise Cove. They each took a single-man kayak into the water on that fateful day. They headed down to the water just before 9 a.m. Pausing on the sand, they both sat down and enjoyed a hot cup of coffee and a muffin to kickstart their day. A passerby saw them launch at 9:30 before they paddled northwards around Latigo Point and on towards Paradise Cove. It was like any of their other training days. The couple were happy and excited to spend the time together. The wind was light and the seas were fairly calm. As they paddled into the sea that day, they were never to return again. There were no further sightings of the couple alive. Tamara's body was found 2 days later. This story is based on the findings and subsequent report by the case investigator Ralph Collier. The following is one of the number of possibilities that could have happened to the couple and is based on circumstantial evidence. After finishing their coffee, they put on their windbreakers and zipped them up over their swimsuits. These were blue and black wetsuit-style jackets that kept them warm on the open water. As the wind was picking up, there was a chill in the air. The couple paddled to about 100 yards out, remaining shoreside of the kelp beds. They knew it was safer not to paddle beyond the kelp forests, as more often than not, they act as a natural deterrent to sharks. After heading around Latigo Point, the wind buffeted them. It whipped the surface of the sea, the salt spray wetting their faces and stinging their eyes. They bowed their heads against it, digging in and persevering. The training route usually took them 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long they stopped for a swim at the halfway point. Today it was taking them a bit longer. They lashed their kayaks together as Tamara was being blown off
This
course.
is Shani.
The momentary
Keep your
pause
wits
of
about you,
paddling gave them
When
a
facing
breather
a drone,
and some
a careful
respite.
shot to the
They
thrust
decided
is
to
far more
continue.
effective
Roy
than
made
reeling
headway
over
in the lead kayak, cutting a wake for Tamara to follow. He felt the tugging of the rope every so often as it went taut, pulling Tamara back on course. It wasn't long before they could see their halfway destination, Paradise Cove. But they never made it. Suddenly, without warning, there was a tremendous smash from below the water. Something from the depths torpedoed upwards and struck the boats from underneath. The two of them were thrown from their kayaks and slammed into the sea. Tamara resurfaced, coughing and sputtering, unsure of what had just happened. Seconds later, she felt a tremendous tug on her left thigh and was pulled underwater. Kicking and thrashing around, she desperately tried to pull herself to the surface, but a shark had a strong grip of her leg. She could feel her lungs about to burst as the shark twisted and turned underwater. Roy had knocked his head on his kayak when he had been thrown into the ocean. Dazed and dizzy, he frantically blinked, trying to make sense of the situation. Seconds later, he heard the terrified screams of his girlfriend as she momentarily resurfaced. He wheeled around to see a sea of red and their upturned kayaks bobbing in the water. He immediately swam over the commotion and managed to grab Tamara's hand. Pulling her above the surface of the water, she gasped for breath. He held on to her, trying desperately to pull her to the boats. The poles of the kayaks were wet and slippery. Each time he tried to grab on, his hand would slip. He lifted one side, trying to flip it back over, but the weight was immense, and whilst holding on to Tamara with one arm, he didn't have the strength to right the boat. He tried again and again. The commotion in the water was witnessed by Margaret Bloom. As she looked out of her living room windows at 10:15 that morning, she noticed an incredible boiling of the water and thrashing about. It was out past the kelp beds near a large United States Coast Guard buoy. She spotted a number of seals leap out of the water onto the surface of the buoy, avoiding the churning sea. They were anxious and agitated. It is unclear whether this commotion was a shark attacking one of the seals, or whether it was the actual attack on Tamara and Roy. If it was the former, and had unsuccessfully caught a seal, the same shark may have turned its attention to the kayaks a few moments later. As Roy held on to Tamara, keeping her afloat, he could feel her slipping away. The shark had severed her femoral artery and she was bleeding out. But the shark hadn't finished yet. It returned, and in a frantic attack, it took hold of Roy and dragged him underwater, never to be seen again.
Tired of 5G home internet house rules?
Stop stealing my bandwidth. I just need to send an email. Hey, it's your first.
Here, we're heading out. Move 42. Stay near router with best signal.
Or you get better internet with Sparklight.
Visit Sparklight.com for our best offers on fiber-fueled internet and mobile. Sparklight, always working for you, especially during back to school.
Sparklight?
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI creation platform. Describe what you want, and watch it take shape. You can plan, customize, and expand in any direction. From tools built for one, to platforms ready for many, from passion projects to enterprise-grade systems. Everything is built in and ready to launch. It's a new world of creation, where you can go as far as your imagination takes you. Can you imagine it? Let's make your dream a reality, right now. When the couple didn't show up to work the next day, their friends and colleagues raised the alarm. People knew that Tamara and Roy had taken the kayaks out, and they knew the routine battle. The kayaks were found the day after the attack. They were floating and upturned less than 20 miles from where the couple had paddled, on the opposite side of Santa Monica Bay. The kayaks had stress fractures along their poles, and one had a hole in the bow. On examination of this evidence, an engineer suggested that significant impact and force would cause this kind of damage. The object that struck the kayaks needed to have been in excess of 2,000 pounds, 900 kilograms, and traveling at least 17 minutes. These are characteristics of a great white shark. These incredible apex predators are also known to attack their prey from behind or from underneath, often shooting out of the water as they do so. The following day, the crew of a sailing boat found Tamara's body floating in the water. The current had carried her 30 miles north of Paradise Cove, near Channel Islands Harbor. She was still wearing her jacket, which suggests that she wasn't swimming when she was attacked. Her injuries included deep bite wounds to her upper thighs. One had severed her femoral artery and vein, and the other measured more than 34 centimeters. She had bruises to her hand and head, possibly from being thrown from her kayak. From the size of the bite marks and severity of the injuries, it was concluded that a great white shark measuring at least 5 feet long had been the cause of the fatality. Following the discovery of Tamara's body, the United States Coast Guard conducted a search and rescue operation by both boat and helicopter to try and find Roy. After a week-long search, no trace of him was ever found. This devastating attack happened within sight of the shore, and yet no one witnessed it. The young couple were both fit and adventurous. Although Tamara was new to kayaking, Roy had been on the water since childhood, and both were exceptional swimmers. Their lives were cut tragically short, simply doing what they loved. While the ocean and its beaches provide us with some of nature's greatest playgrounds, we must remember that this is the shark's habitat, not ours. And despite how experienced and prepared you might be, one encounter with these murderous creatures can lead you to your unfortunate final affliction. Saturday, June 5th, 1993. Husband and wife Ian and Terry Cartwright were heading out to sea with their 5 children. Ian was skippering the Australian maritime college vessel Riveresco in the Bass Strait just off of the Tasmanian coast. They were headed to the Barrenjoey Seal Convoy on 10th Island. This island is an uninhabited granite outcrop, home to a large breeding colony of Australian sea lions. With up to 400 sea lion pups born every year, the area is a nature reserve offering some excellent diving and snorkeling experiences. Conserving this habitat is important to marine biodiversity and scientific research. Terry Cartwright worked with staff in the Australian Maritime College at the University of Tasmania. The other divers on board Riveresco included Stephen Ears, a marine fisheries lecturer at the college, and his colleague, Josephine Osborne. Stephen had invited Terry and Josephine along to enjoy the research he was conducting and observe the behavior of the sea lions. Terry was eager to join in and experience the interactions with the sea lions. They were well known in the area for being very interactive with divers, often displaying playfulness and coming very close to the people in the water. Terry asked Ian to anchor in a channel on the southern side of the island. Ian motored the boat to the spot and released the anchor chain. The depth reader read 15 meters, and they were about 150 meters from the mainland. Ian and Terry's children leaned over the side of the boat and watched as the anchor splashed into the water and disappeared into the depths. With the calm seas, it was easy for Terry, Stephen, and Josephine to put on their gear. Terry slipped into a 2-piece wetsuit. She pulled the hood up over her head and slipped into her yellow fins. Stephen lifted her yellow air cylinder onto her back, and Terry clipped it up. Stephen dropped into the water first. He signaled that it was okay to the rest of the crew, and he began swimming away from the boat. Second to enter the water was Terry, closely followed by Josephine. Terry was an experienced scuba diver, but hadn't been in the water for over a year. She was excited to be back amongst the marine wildlife that she loved so much. Once in the water, Terry signaled that she was okay, but she was fumbling with her equipment. She bobbed about on the surface as she tried to adjust the regulator in her mask. Assuming Terry was close behind them, Stephen and Josephine began swimming on the surface of the water towards 10th Island. As they did so, seals came swimming up to them, their whiskered faces merely inches from their masks. Stephen ducked his head underwater. Below them, the sea lions were darting about, swimming up to the diver's feet and then swimming back down. The sea was a hive of activity. Terry's husband Ian and another crew member, Ian Rinkin, both shouted at Terry, signaling for her to hurry up and catch up to the others. She was lagging behind and it was safer for them to stick together as a group. Finally, Terry sorted out her equipment and turned around to see her friends 20 meters away. She swam to catch up.
Our chicken tender's $20. These prices are out of control. Bro, it's a concert. Everything is overpriced. This is so annoying. My paycheck still hasn't hit. Can you spot me $50? Seriously? Look, I'm locked into a pretty strict budget. If I drop $50 on concert food, it starts throwing everything off. Dude, just get Grant. Who's Grant? And why would he pay for my food? It's an app called Red Cash Advance, and you can sign up in minutes with no credit check and request $25 to $350 in cash advance. Yeah, but I need the money now, not in a couple days. Relax, you can get instant delivery for a small fee. You get your money in 5 minutes or less. Seriously? I'm getting the app now. Oh, I just requested my advance. Let's get some overpriced food.
That's why y'all need to know about Earnin. With Earnin, you can save up to $150 a day of money already contributed. With a max of $1,000 between paydays, you can choose how much to cash out any day that you need to, and without any mandatory fees. It's literally the company gives you more control over when you actually get your money. You're working hard every day, right? So why not actually get paid money? Download the app, connect your bank account, and see what's available for you.
Despite not being Terry was a fit 35-year-old and caught up to the others in no time. The three of them bobbed on the surface together for a few moments before descending just meters from the rocks of 10th Island. As they dropped beneath the ocean's surface, Terry marveled at the scenery. The visibility was fantastic, and she watched as the sea lions glided by effortlessly. Stephen and Josephine made it to the bottom of the ocean and looked up to see Terry paused in her descent. Terry felt the pressure build in her ears. She pinched her nose and blew, but nothing happened. Each time she continued to dive deeper, the pressure in her ears grew. She tried again and again to equalize her ears. But suddenly, she was hit with an incredible force. It knocked the air from her lungs as she was thrown through the water. The regulator was ripped from her mouth and an explosion of bubbles surrounded her. Stephen and Josephine hovered just above the sea floor, shocked as they saw a 15-foot great white shark torpedo directly into Terry. Disoriented, Terry ran around as the shark came at her once more. Its enormous mouth clamped down around her torso, and she let out a muted cry. Air bubbles escaping from her mouth. Stephen and Josephine looked on in horror as a shadow of red engulfed their friend. As the shark ravaged her, thrashing her body around in the water, they hid behind the underwater rocks, hardly daring to peek over the top. The sea lions all dispersed, swimming away or leaping out of the water onto the island. The two divers froze in terror. They desperately wanted to reach Terry, but they couldn't see where the shark was. Then, as Stephen decided to make a dash towards Terry's limp body, they saw the toothy grin of the shark emerge through the red-stained mermaids. Its powerful tail drove it through the water at 16 miles per hour. Its top lip pulled backwards as its immense jaws opened against her and grabbed a hold of Terry again. It dragged her deeper and deeper until Terry was out of sight. Stephen and Josephine made a dash for the island and resurfaced as quickly as they could. Ian and the children had watching from the boat. They had seen a commotion but were unaware of the horror that had occurred in the depths. When Stephen and Josephine frantically made it out of the water and onto 10th Island, they shouted and screamed at Ian to bring the boat over. Knowing there was some kind of emergency and seeing that Terry hadn't resurfaced, Ian Cartwright and Ian Rankin jumped into the 11-foot dinghy and rowed as quickly as they could to the island. Hearing the heart-stopping news of his wife, the distraught Ian took charge and searched the area in his boat for over half an hour. He then had to deliver the devastating news to their 6-year-old quadruplets. Who waited patiently on the boat. With no sign of Terry above the water, Ian Radio Bell begged for help and a sea of air search was initiated. During the afternoon, pieces of Terry's wetsuit surfaced a kilometer away from the intent site. One of her legs with the yellow fin still attached was also pulled from the sea. No other trace of Terry was identified. we enter the enchanting underwater world of the marine environment, we must always remember that we are amongst predators of all kinds, and that this is their domain, not ours. With an abundance of prey in the waters of the world, great white sharks frequent the area. They typically feed on sea lions that are experienced in the water. Any injured sea lions or stragglers are easy pickings for a 15-foot great white. As Terry had paused midway in the water column, suspended briefly as she tried to equalize her ears, she may have been interpreted as a struggling sea lion. Dressed predominantly in black and among swarms of sea lions, many believed that it was a case of mistaken identity. A devastating and heartbreaking case of mistaken identity that led Terry Cartwright to her horrifying final affliction. Liam, Harris, and Samantha had come to the new Smyrna beach in Florida to make the most of their vacation. The three friends had met in college and got along because of their shared wanderlust and proclivity to push boundaries in pursuit of adventure. The beach was bustling with surfers, tanners, and volleyball players, but none of this gave them the adrenaline rush they were seeking. The place was also famed as a potential hotspot for shark attacks, and Liam had challenged the group to spend 2 nights off of its coast in a small yacht. Despite some reluctance from Samantha, the trio finally took a yacht and sailed off a few kilometers from the shore. The first night spent on the boat was calm and serene. The water was dignified, and the silence drifted off into deep conversations. Samantha had brought steak and beef ribs for their time at sea.